Next on the DragonShip, we are going to take a little walk down memory lane and reflect on all those great moments with those new ManoSpherians.
Hafiz, what's up, brother? Thank you for being here,
What
man.
up? Appreciate the opportunity, my guy.
Yes, let's ask the single ladies. What would you prefer?
What monogamy means to me is someone who's committed to themselves. Mm-hmm. That's like, the answer is within you. And
I'm not accusing, I'm genuinely asking. Are you sure you're not confusing the amount of time the man spends with you with his monogamy? Because they're different things.
It, or damn well believe I titled it, Red Pill is for Losers.
And we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Air Podcast. We're here, Brandon Carter, a.k.a. King Keto. Man, got a good episode planned for you guys. Welcome to episode one.
Episode one. 3 times last week. We had a question that we asked there, and I really love this whole thing because it kind of sets up the whole point of this show, right?
Ridiculous, aren't? But people say that all the time. Well, what if you stop a crackhead? She got pregnant. Well, I would make that decision not to do that. And
what did you learn from Mr. Beast?
How to run a brothel. A lot of people don't know that about him, but
okay, that's his side hustle.
Into sluts, loves like
Mr. Dick and Balls says, "Hey, Jack."
See, it's what she does. She does this. Like she reads it like that's normal. Like it's not even. She's not even saying, "I'm not gonna skip the name." She just goes, "Mr. Dick and Balls said."
Could you please clear up the cuck article you wrote?
I am not going to talk about this.
Okay.
And basically, you know what? Fuck you. For bringing this up right here and right now. Why are you doing this to me?
I didn't know that. I didn't know what it was.
Well, just use a little bit of fucking common sense.
Sorry, apologies.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Elizabeth.
Heartfelt.
Now, we do hope Mr. Lumbercuck had a better year. At least we hope Mr. Lumbercuck finished the year off better, that is. Anyways, but do you guys think that was it? Do you think that's all we were going to do? You don't think we were going to talk about ourselves? Oh, here we go.
They don't get the airplay because it's not as sensational, you see. And especially in our feminist primary social order, testosterone is associated with males. And we'll get into this later. It's males. Is that what it is? No, I actually have a chart here. If you want to look at what it is at different ages for fun, guys, let's take a look.
Yeah, I thought 800 was the high end.
You can feel pretty normal up to. I think, let me go back to that for a second. I think that's actually true. And if men were doing it, all right, 100% of men were doing it, we would be able to protect women's virtue, but that's not going to happen.
Another trend, another somewhat ridiculous trend that somebody's putting out there to, I don't know, to negotiate real desire. You just really can't negotiate that. She either wants to be with you or she doesn't. You either want to be with her or you don't.
It's inevitable, bro. I mean, it's coming. It doesn't matter one way or another, that you are the sum of all your choices. And so when you see women like this that have this kind of attitude, man, steer clear, because let me tell you something. It's the juice is definitely, and I'm going to coin Rollo Tomasi right here. The juice is definitely not worth the squeeze. I'll tell you something, man, that this affected me. I think this scripture right here affected me more than any other things I learned when I went to church my whole life, bro.
I'm going to preface this. Like, okay, so this is in the Garden of Eden, all right? So Adam and Eve just ate the fruit that they weren't supposed to eat, and God found them, and then they're wearing fig leaves, and, he's now rendering his punishment upon both Adam and Eve. Okay. And right now he just finished talking to Adam. So now he's addressing Eve. Genesis 3:16 in the New Living Translation. Then he said to the woman, I will sharpen the pain of your pregnancy, and in the pain you will give birth. You will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you.
God, dude.
Wow, that was a lot. And you know what? I'm still trying to recover from learning that Eve is the reason why we have feminism. Dumb bitch. But anyways, make sure that you join us this Saturday while we go through the top moments of 2022. Only on the DragonShip. 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. 1:30 Eastern.
internet. You're a guy on the internet who doesn't have much experience with women. So what you do is you start consuming content from people who seem like they do.
And
or maybe
also
they
consuming content that feeds your fears.
Precisely. But what are the sort of stories that are sufficiently newsworthy to break through onto the internet? They're the most egregious transgressions of this particular... It's the girl that got into a relationship with some Canadian guy and took all of his money, and now he lives on the street, and he can't ever see his kids, and his dog hates him. And
while he was sleeping, went out, fucked a guy in a gas station, came back. Like, that's a real story
Made him
that a
lick
girl
it.
told.
Like,
So, I think a lot of times my issue with the manosphere is that it's presented as if the frustration is handled inward, but make yourself a high value man, whatever like that, which you do not need to be to get laid. I think the guys that got laid the most when I was younger were not high value. They were just good at chat.
Is that not value?
It is value.
Now,
bro, being married is the best.
Why?
No, it's horrible. I'm going to be honest with you. No, it's great. It is the best. But the thing is that we don't share it's the best because that's not fun. I was talking about this with the guys on Flagrant, but it's like you don't share good parts of your fucking relationships with your boys. There's nothing fun about that. Like in the rat race is great. At my age, I'm 39. That's another thing. I had a great time partying. I'm glad I got it all out of my system. I don't have the FOMO that a lot of guys do. A lot of guys get hitched young, and then they have to deal with their whole life. What would it be like to have a threesome or something like that? What would it be like to go to Miami and see if you
gotta
could
take
get
the boxes off, man.
Exactly.
One of my boys was big into pickup artistry about 10 years ago, and I remember him speaking to me, and he was saying, "It's like, dude, you're really fucking like committed to this pickup shit. Like, you really, really are. Like, where's it coming from?"
Yeah.
He says, "Yeah, my future wife better be thankful for this." I'm like, you're gonna have to explain why your future wife should be thankful that you're running through half of this city at the age of 23.
Got it out the system.
And he said, I don't want to walk down the street with my wife and my 2 kids and my dog and look at a Brazilian chick and think, I wonder what it's like to fuck a Brazilian chick.
Yeah. Like, if you have a prenup, you don't have a relationship.
You have a prenup?
No. You have a girlfriend.
If you have a prenup.
You have a girlfriend. You're not building something. You have an escape hatch. You know what I'm saying? You have a girlfriend that you created a loop that you could get out of to call her your wife for her, but it's your girlfriend because you could break up whenever you want and everything's okay. A real relationship, the way that like marriage was designed is we are in this shit and we got to fight through this and we got to work on this and develop this fucking love. And I think you do that without the, what is it called? The parachute. Now, I've been married a year. I could come back in 5 years like I was a fucking idiot, Chris. What the hell was I talking about? You know? Yeah.
Speaking of Tate.
Yeah.
Tate versus Jake Paul.
Yeah.
What do you think happens?
I don't know. Are they actually going to fight?
They had a face-off. I think if they don't, it is, even for somebody that has as many resources as both of those guys do, they're dropping the bag big time if they don't do it. Surely. I mean, there's got to be, name me a bigger fight that could happen that would draw more normal public attention than Jake Paul fighting Andrew Tate.
Bigger fight, Jake Paul versus Canelo Alvarez.
Mm-hmm.
That would be bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I think in order for the fight to be big, Jake needs to be the heel.
That's the fucking interesting question.
Yeah.
That's the interesting question.
Yeah.
What sort of fucking world have we got ourselves into where Jake Paul's the hero?
He's the face.
In a fucking face down.
Yeah.
Like only if you find like a guy from the depths of like the fucking ninth circle and drag him out, and here's Andrew Tate as the fucking bad guy.
Yeah.
You are such a smart woman, and this is the nuance of it.
Yeah.
You're 100% right.
First of all, we must internalize the flatulation of the matter by transmitting the effervescence of the Indonesian proximity in order to further segregate the crux of my venereal infection. Now, if I may retain my liquids here for one moment, I'd like to continue the redundance of my quote-unquote intestinal tract, see, because to preclude on the issue of world domination would only circumvent, circumcise the revelation that reflects the aphrodisiac symptoms which now perpetrates the Jericho's activation.
You're oblivious to this, how it works. You're not being serious.
Yeah.
Let's stop playing this game. This is why
it's not a game.
This is why the red pill people, you guys are acting dumb. You know what you're doing. You know you're doing this for the views and the clicks and the likes. Stop playing these games. That biggest 305, 305, 305. Come on, stop it, please. please.
Yes.
You can trick the people in there. You're not
I'm
tricking
not.
me.
I'm not tricking anybody.
If
Why
you-
do
you-
you keep like accusing me of things?
Yeah. Okay, so hookup culture, where do you think, I want to get to this because I don't, what do you think we disagree on some
I
components?
don't. Maybe just like the details. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think that we
So
necessarily.
my
disagree.
take on it is this, because that whoever that was in the chat was wrong. I am trying to tell women don't do this because at least to men it's a little bit different. I don't talk about it from the perspective of emotional trauma. I don't know that men experience emotional trauma from sleeping with people that they don't love, but I do talk about it as it being a sinkhole where then it becomes like, oh, people they get upset because I didn't. It becomes like a tally, like how many girls can I get with this week? Oh, I didn't hit the mark. That's a problem. They start like falling into the drinking, falling into the club culture, losing focus, losing ambition, and focus on what they should really be doing, which is like becoming that financially secure, financially stable, healthy, in the gym, fit guy who looks to a woman like a reliable source to lean on.
80%. If there is a hookup culture, it exists between a very small percentage of men and a wide percentage of women, whereas the rest of the guys are the have-nots, the 80%ers are the have-nots. That's why I say that there is no hookup culture, because it seems like the way that it's represented and the way that it's pitched is that all guys can get all girls. They're just so cruel, and they just all they care about is quick, fast sex and everything, whereas the 80% of guys are so in such a state of sexual scarcity that they would bend over backwards to be in a monogamous, like we were saying before, the 19 to 24-year-old girls who want to be at home and want to be a mom and everything else, those guys would bend over backwards to get into something like that, but they're unattractive and they're not going to get the call.
It seems to me that there is a hookup culture when it comes to women, though. There are, we show
and
videos.
And the 4.5% of guys.
We show.
Fantastic.
Not
What about
even.
you?
Not hold on. Not even Meg Thee Stallion.
Everything on social media is not what you would think.
Rule
it
number
is,
4:
because,
social
like,
media is fake.
For example, like I'm not trying to throw my mom's business
Well,
out
I
there.
remember saying married women in your life.
Yeah, my mom's married. Like I have a stepdad, so like they've been married for 11 years. Y'all said
husband, and they're like, what the fuck is this? And then divorces happen. Then massive amount of divorces.
I understand that though.
Did you notice attraction that was different when you were on it, or attraction to different types of men when you were on it or off it?
No, I don't think
See,
so.
that's a common thing. So here's the thing. I don't know if you and I have ever had this conversation before, but one of the things when we're talking about like ovulatory shift, really what it is it's throughout a woman's menstrual cycle. There's the first 14 days, and then there's the last up to 28 days, right? So
And here we go, gentlemen.
The most masculine man on the fucking planet that I've ever seen, Red Pill Thor.
No, not this one. Welcome to the DragonShip, gentlemen. 2022. Happy New Year. And wait, before I even get started here, what did that guy what did Chris Williamson say? Why, when you're married, you'd see the Brazilian chick walking down the street and you'd wonder what it'd be like to F her. And if you did it right, you never would. We men, ain't we? We're men. What do men think about? Let's find out. And let's find out about 2022 in review, the rise of the new ManoSpherians, and the purple hue of the new red pill. Let's bring up our panel right now. Mark Daniels.
Hey, how you doing?
Glenn, Randall, and let's bring, when Phil Foster gets back, we'll bring him on. Fantastic. Happy New Year, guys. How are you doing?
Likewise. Great.
Happy New Year.
Oh, thank you, man. A little bit of a different intro today, huh, Glenn? We really wanted to set the stage today, and I think that was fantastic. Look what happened in 2022. Oh, we're getting some background noise from somebody. Let's take a look. Looks like Glenn froze. So let's go ahead and do some muting here. Okay. Let's see what we got. Mark, how you doing there?
I'm great.
Yeah. So what do you think about 2022? You were able to, did you start your YouTube channel in 2022?
No, I started about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
2001.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. So let's get started, and we can chat about everything in that little clip that everybody got to see today. We got a nice start to the day, and I wanted to really break down 2022 and why it's been an incredible year in our space. Well, number one, the most important thing that actually happened. No, it wasn't the Andrew Tate thing. Nope. It wasn't Fresh and Fit. What was it, Glenn? Do you know? I know you know. It took a lot of hard work. Some solid men formed a crew. And what happened in late July of 2022? We launched the DragonShip, gentlemen. And here we are today, sailing on the DragonShip, looking for new shores, which we can pillage for young men that are ready to join the adventure of a lifetime and create a dominant masculine presence and conquer the troubles in their life and live the effing dream. Isn't that right, Glenn? Do we have audio on you yet?
Yo. You know, I am remote, gentlemen. I am not here at the studio. I'm visiting my beautiful woman here in Washington State. So if I pop in and out, forgive me. I will be on when I can. But you know what? These blowjobs are amazing. So if you guys don't see me, I'm gonna be a little busy. Okay.
Hey, now, come on. Sharing is caring.
Not when it's this good. I pay
Hey, now,
premium.
come on. Don't be saying that sharing is caring now. All right. Just don't do that. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Hopefully we'll get Phil back, because Phil, I'm sure, has a lot to add about 2022. He was very instrumental and very much inspiring me to definitely take it up to head to the CME this year. And I want to go back further than that if we can, and start doing some reviews and get your guys' opinions on what you thought was important in 2022. But one thing I saw in 2022 is the rise of what I call the new ManoSpherians. Now, in my opinion, nobody really understands where this red pill really came from. There was a lot of early guys that were out there, but for some of us really old guys who've been there for a long time, it's kind of interesting to see people like, guys on I love Adam Sosnick. I got to meet him in Miami, and they just don't fully understand where all this came from. It came about in the early 2000s, and there was a lot of guys that were dancing around it. And really there were 4, maybe 5, really 6, let's say, really, really prominent men that were all talking in and around this pickup culture. I'll say culture, but it really wasn't that. It was really men sharing notes on the old BBs, the bulletin boards, and such like that. And what the prominent men were blog writers. And we can go right to the original 4 R's of what we call now the red pill or the manosphere, primarily being Rollo Tomasi. His inspirations and his work on Chateau Artiste as a moderator was pretty impressive. And then, of course, there was Ryan Stone, a relatively young guy compared to me, but he was very prolific as a writer on the Married Red Pill. There's some other guys out there in addition to him that were kind of influential on the Red Pill, the Married Red Pill, on the Reddits. But Ryan's definitely one of the 4, and then you got to take a look at Roosh. What Roosh was able to accomplish out of the PUA things with his books was pretty damn amazing. Now, you can say that he kind of ran his ship or his cigarette boat right into the rocks at full stream, into the Jesus pill. I think there was some things missing in his life, and with he was one of the first to get canceled off Amazon. They banned his books, and it was really based around a show he did with Dr. Oz, where he was really attacked and set up, and unfortunately he fell right into that bear trap. I think it really did affect him, and he wasn't able to really adjust that, which is unfortunate. His writings about conversations and being able to converse openly with people was some of the best writings out there. That's extremely practical. His books on talking to people, I know it's a bad title. It was called Day Bang. Super amazing. He really tapped into what old people do when they can talk to anybody and tell stories. You ever hear an old man game? They can talk to a rock, right? he really defined that, and he put down the techniques on how to accomplish that, which really opens the door for someone to be social if they've never been social before. And with practice, you get really good. And then there was, of course, Rossi, who disappeared from the internet. And then you had on the periphery with the religious side of the red pill, you had Dalrock. Of course, I think, Glenn, you're familiar with Dalrock now. He's no longer writing. I think his site is archived, but really important. This is really where it came from. I'm sure I've left some folks out. There was Blue Pill Professor. There was, Apple K, things like that were really prominent. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Pook. I don't know if anybody's heard of Pook, but there was a book written called The Book of Pook, probably one of the first. It was before The Rational Male. And it's written written in pieces in a strange way. Like as if anybody read Aesop's Fables, it's like this old Greek philosopher talking to a young, impressionable young man trying to learn the ins and the outs of life and the meaning of life and the meaning of relationships with women and how it works and all of that sort of thing. And so that's a really fascinating read, right there at the cusp. And then just as those guys were getting hot and heavy in the late 2000s, you had like a prominent comedian like Patrice O'Neill, which I talked about with MLD John today. Patrice O'Neill kind of gave the comedic voice to many of these truths in such a way, and it was so shocking that he rose to stardom very, very quickly and was very base and laughed at. But the truth, even though it's harsh and it's bitter, is sometimes best accepted with humor. And so that's kind of where this whole space has come, and it's become popular in the last 2 years with the rise of Fresh and Fit and the entertainment value. But this year, we got the launch of Just Pearly Things. We got Jedediah Bila showing us how she has gone from a feminist conservative all over into a red pill acceptance, because the truth is the truth, gentlemen. And, if she has any masculine man in her life that listens to this information, she'll be able to bounce this off of him and gain a logical understanding that her emotions could never grab because of her conditioning, her studies in academia, which is very against masculinity and has been for many, many, many years, Anyway, one of the things I wanted to get into is the rise of like Pearly Things and Hafiz. Oh man, Hafiz. What can I say about that? He just reminds me of Oswald Bates from MTV that can droll on and on with such extreme confidence in his ignorance that he can't even pronounce the names of the citations that he uses. Last night, he was going on and on about Dr. David Buss being a evolutionary biologist, which he's not. He's an evolutionary psychologist, which just, exacerbates his position when he doesn't really debate. He just tries to forcefully put his ideas out there for the real purpose.
Don't get me started on the Hafiz.
We're going to go there. I'm just kind of getting this all set up. So I'm just kind of going over the 2022. And here we are last night with Hafiz and Pearl again. And then the rise of Andrew Tate, the need and the vacuum that was created by this destruction of masculinity in just the last 5 or 6 years has gone into hyperdrive with cancellations, with the media attack, with movies and entertainment attacking all masculinity and rising this insane feminine adoption of masculinity through movies, Miss Marvel, all those sort of things, that these men are yearning, being even sexless to the point that it's past 30% for men 30 and below, making a lot of thirsty guys. So obviously Andrew Tate is going to be talking to these combat age young men that are sex starved and just telling them the truth, for which no one in their lives had. So amazingly, this red pill has become very talked about. And I think in the future, the media is really going to paint us old guard as the bad guys. And this new guard, the new ManoSpherians, will be the saviors, because they're mixing a lot of kind of surface level red pill thinking with a lot of the old style thinking, which is let's mix a little bit of feeling and emotion in here. You notice a lot of them come out and says it feels dangerous, it feels this, and that's from people that claim to be in this space, such as, or at least putting their toe in, such as Chris Williamson, which irritates me because I know that it's popularity scraping for the purpose of getting everybody excited, talking how bad and dangerous red pill stuff is. And then of course, Andrew Schultz, the comedian we just heard, bless his heart, he's a funny guy, but he knows nothing. I mean, they stated about guys won't think about the Brazilian chick walking down the street. If you're a normal human male and you're married and you've done everything right, your instincts and drives will kick in. You'll always wonder, gentlemen. And if you're saying anything else, you are absolutely lying to your inner self and your authentic self. You need to acknowledge it. It doesn't mean you act on it, but it's absolutely true. And when you do that, you're going to have much better relationships in your life. That's my kind of take on 2022. Glenn, there was something else that occurred. Something else occurred early on, and we alluded to it. This man had the nicest beard. It was so beautiful. It was dyed in such a perfect pattern. Not a white.
He would chop wood like nobody else.
The wood chopping and the ability to suck people in, shall we say, men in particularly, redhead women. And then the ability to go on national TV and speak at all these things. The man definitely had some talent. But talk about some crash and burn. Let's talk about Jack Murphy as an event.
Let me explain this. Let me talk about this now. With Jack Murphy did good for this space to a degree. Like, this man was really on some great talking points. He was speaking facts. The problem is that when he got exposed for the things that he did in his private life, he tried to deny, deflect, and just ignore those things. And you know what you do behind closed doors is your own business. All right. If it's not congruent with what you're preaching, well, then now you're gonna have to answer questions to them. What he simply should have just said is like, look, I'll fuck you both. Okay, your girl and you at the same time, and just own this shit. He should have owned who he was and owned what he did, and everybody probably would have done a lot better in accepting what him. But his problem with it is that he tried to deny, deflect, and ignore. And you know what? It's not being congruent. It's not being true to himself. And if anybody in this space, look, we all have skeletons in our closet. We all have made mistakes in our lives, and I can say for myself, I made mistakes in my life. And until you are ready to own that and be like, you know what, this was a period in my life, I dropped the ball here, or you know what, I was exploring things here. I was not aware of everything. I tried it out, didn't like it, moved on, whatever the case is. But to hide from it, to ignore it, to dismiss it, you only put yourself in a position like he did, where he ended up canceling himself. I don't think anybody canceled him. I think he canceled himself by not being man enough to face the music.
Yeah. No. And I know I don't have the video queued. Did you have the video queued? Maybe Randall can cue it on. You saw a little.
I threw it up in the Telegram. I'm like I said, I'm remote, so I don't.
Maybe we can get Randall to pick that up, if you would, Randall, and we can kind of review while we're talking about Jack Murphy. Jack Murphy did do some good. I actually enjoyed his book, and I think what Jack Murphy did is made a real critical error that men do make. Men live their lives and they make mistakes. And one of the things you have to do is you have to own up to those mistakes, as embarrassing and as shitty as they might be. You need to get up there and basically, as a dominant masculine man in your space, need to say, look, mistakes were made.
Yeah,
I take accountability for it. I take accountability for it and responsibility for it. And move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. My other camera was glitching, so apologies at the beginning of the stream, guys, for that. I'll say this about Jack. I've known Jack now for several years personally, and every interaction I've had with him is always added value to my life. He's always been a decent human being. I think you're 100% correct. And kind of some of the comments in the chat too, as well, full disclosure, man, you have a lifestyle that you live in your private life and you choose to put that online. You're at risk when you operate in this space. And so I think that, his personal choices and his personal habits, that's his personal business. I don't necessarily kind of like what Glenn was saying. I'll fuck you both. I mean, you can't put it any more eloquently than that. You see what I'm saying? But what I'm trying to tell you as a man, as the interactions that I've had with him as a man, he's always added value. His book was solid. I think that it's unfortunate. And there's a lot of things that precipitated that whole thing. I mean, obviously with 21Con, and we don't do hit pieces on this channel, right? But the gentleman that runs 21Con, obviously has a lot of people working around him or for him and feeding him a lot of information. And a lot of that stuff, was dug up by those individuals as a smear campaign on Jack. Now, once again, Jack's personal life is his personal life. And that's a good lesson for all of us here on this stream is, if you have something, always remember this. If the dirt comes out in the wash, I do not care how deep the dirt goes, it comes out. When you run it through the washing machine, it comes out. And that's the lesson behind this situation is once you become a public figure, and obviously we're going to talk about other public figures as we move through this stream. I think that Jack's inability to maintain a level of anonymity in his personal life and it crossed over into his public life is the fundamental issue here. Yes. And so, if that's what floats your boat, that's what floats your boat. I mean, I'm not going to fault someone for, being gay. I'm not going to fault someone for being lesbian. I'm not going to fault someone for being heterosexual. That's their personal business. It's the information inside those people that's what matters to me.
I am 100% on board with you. I actually really, really enjoyed and admired and respected his book and many of the things that he had to say and was kind of hoping for his rise to be quite successful because it opened doors for all of us. I will say that. He seemed like he'd be a fantastic guy to get to know. Here's what I wanted to kind of get out of that without disparaging him really is the lesson and the fact that this was such a large event that shook the manosphere because he actually had a lot of traction in the manosphere. And, to realize that when we go online and we start to broadcast, me, you, Phil, Glenn, Mark, everybody, that a lot of our personal lives could be made public. And I realize this. That's why when you see me as RP Thor, Thor is my real name. I don't hide behind a pseudonym because ultimately it could be used against you. At one time, it was easy to use a pseudonym or a writer's name to kind of hide your private life. And in today's environment, that's not going to happen. He got caught off guard and he lost his stoicism for a moment and was reacting emotionally when the young lady had asked him the question about a particular article that he wrote on living the lifestyle. Phil, you and I are familiar with that lifestyle, and that could easily come back on all of us and but not in those circumstances per se, but what it can actually come back is it can come back in an environment where we're caught off guard. And I think that can be learned.
So I think that was the main reason why a lot of people that it blew up like he did was his reaction to Sydney. His loss of his stoicism is why people sensed weakness. They sensed blood in the water, and like sharks do, they pounced. And if he had said, like he could have prepped them as well because he's been asked about this beforehand. So he could have gone in and been like, hey, you guys might get some questions about this. Just ignore it. And he could have handled it much better. And I think due to the poor reaction that he held, and because Sydney also has a great following and they love her, when he was like that, especially fuck you, heartfelt, like so many of like her white knights rose up and then just dogpiled on top of the 21 convention guys.
Well,
So
anybody,
it's-
even a casual watcher, and here's the lesson for everybody, really, and it's a good lesson, even if you're not in this space, is, you know, something that's personal that gets laid out. You know, if it was a part of your life, I mean, you're going to have to sit there and say, you know, glad you asked that question. It was, you can answer it like this. Glad you not real happy that you answered the question, but to answer it and put this to rest is, you know, I lived the lifestyle. It was a part of my exploration. And I'm not, you know, that's who I am. It's not a part of my life now. Moving on. Next question. You know,
Well, it's simple
and
as
that's
this.
put to bed forever.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my apologies, Glenn.
It's simple as this. Like, and I'm gonna go biblical on you guys, but you know, sorry, that's what I'm gonna do. He who without sin, go ahead and cast the first stone.
Glenn, dude, I'm buying you some friggin' robes, man. That's it. I'm done.
Boulders.
But he without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah, let me make
Who's
a point.
who's perfect? who hasn't fucked up? Like, people even say, Glenn, well, Glenn, you quote a whole lot of Bible shit and you curse all the fucking time. Well, cool. Guess what? I fall short, people. I'm not fucking perfect. All right. I'm a flawed human being. Eat
down
a dick.
to the white microphone dick.
Yeah.
Hey, it's my girl's mic. Leave that shit alone.
Let me make a point. Let me make a point on this.
Yes,
I've lived 62 years, and I've listened to a lot of people share things in confidence over the years. A lot of people I've helped, and anybody who is surprised by what he said is more than likely someone who has so many skeletons in their closet that they don't want anybody to find out about. Because I've talked to enough men in confidence. People do so many things that I guess the general public might be amazed by, but we've been doing things like that for thousands of years. He didn't do anything and has been done thousands of times before he's done it. Probably a lot of people that condemned him or criticized him for it have done it, have thought about doing it, have fantasized about doing it, but they don't want to accept that about themselves. And like you guys said, if he would have just owned it, which is very difficult when you're in a situation like that and it just pops on you, you know you're in front of a lot of people. So, you know, he became fearful is probably what it was. And maybe he didn't handle it as well as he could have. But then again, we're all human. We're not going to be Mr. Perfect Stoic all the time. So his mistake, I don't think, was so much that he lived a certain lifestyle, was just the fact that he was caught off guard and he acted somewhat emotionally, which I'm sure we could all say has happened to us sometime in the past too.
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, again, like, what they try to do is, like, they try to throw everything that he actually ever written and everything that any good that he did
in the trash
with one mistake. And here's the thing, I'm gonna be real, like, there's a lot of people in this red pill space, these quote unquote ManoSpherians, you know, in there attacking him over that
looking
mistake
for it, and they're going to look for it on all us older, wiser guys. This is because this is a way you knock the, you know, it's the crabs in the bucket theory. This is becoming popular. So if you can knock one down and gain traction, you can, you know, get on top of the heap, so to speak.
Yes, sir. I want to shout out to Danny real quick. Danny, are you ready for lunch this week, dude? I think we're gonna have lunch tomorrow, since I'm in your neighborhood. Just so you guys know, Danny, I'm in Washington State right now visiting, and Danny Arnold is out here, and he is one of the solid guys that always, you know, supports the DragonShip and everybody on here, this panel. So, you know, I connected with Danny, and me and Danny are going to link up this week before I take off back to LA, you know, to catch up. Just, you know, guys like him. This is why we enjoy this space. This is why we enjoy, you know, connecting with you guys, because we have good men like Danny in here that want to see everybody get better, that want to level up and understand that we're just all human. We're not perfect. And that, you know what, we all have our own past and we all have our own mistakes. And we want to get ready to see each other level up and get to the next level.
Yep, for sure. So now that we've learned a lesson there, that was one of kind of the start, because that, in a way, actually put a lot of eyeballs into this space. It really, really did, because, you know, Jack had gotten so much traction that he was on, you know, Tim Pool, and, you know, even Myron had started to get that traction and went on as well. So it was really interesting to see this stuff start to get traction for sure. And these guys get really, I mean, you saw that Myron got just castigated by the Australian news reporters because you would think that their entire country was attacked viciously with, cluster bombs when you heard those news reporters talking about Myron. And he really wasn't saying too much other than, high value men have options, then will exercise those options. It's not like he was laying down the 10 commandments. However, that got the ball rolling. And shortly thereafter, we saw Andrew Tate. He really started something amazing by breaking the logarithm. You guys have any comments on either of those two this year?
Yeah, actually, in a way, Myron did attack Australia. Okay, if you look at Australian law and look at the laws that they have set up, right? If you're a guy, you are not in a position of any equal rights over there. You're actually more of a second-class citizen. If you're a guy over there, and let's say you are a Subway sandwich maker, but you're a student that's also going to school as a lawyer, right, to pass the law, pass the bar, and if you meet a girl and you tell a girl that you're a lawyer, right, and not necessarily a lawyer quite yet, and she catches you the next day after hooking up with you at Subway, making her foot long, she could actually charge you for a crime for basically false impersonation.
Yeah, I heard that. I read about that.
So when Myron went out there and he was saying what he was saying, it actually was an attack on their way and their view of men and how men are supposed to engage and interact.
From a state perspective. Mhm.
From a state perspective, yeah. So in a way, it was like an attack. He was in their eyes, he was weaponizing men to be something that what they consider is illegal.
Yeah, I understand Sweden is exactly the same way, and their legal system is very interesting. It's guilty until proven innocent. And I guess that's what they got at Julian Assange on as well, is having consensual sex with 2 women. And this actually carried a real stiff. And then even he ended up taking the condom off. And his claims was it was asked to take off. And the girls say, no, really? That is called rape by surprise. And it carries heavy, heavy penalties, even though the sex itself was consensual. So it's a very different world, gentlemen, than just 10 years ago. So they ended up getting him for that. That's pretty wild.
Well, here's what seems to happen in a lot of these situations. A woman just says, and her word is taken as the truth, and the man has to somehow prove that it's not, which can be very difficult in these situations.
Yeah.
You know who to thank for that? You know, you could thank for that. You could thank that senator from Hawaii that during the Kavanaugh trial, she goes out there and publicly says men need to just believe all women. Didn't say you got to believe all women victims that were all right, but she said believe all women, as if women do not lie about shit.
Yeah, it's been that way for a really long time. The deception, Mark, you're muted. Don't know why, but you're still muted, Mark. But interestingly enough, is one of the things I noticed in 2022 is all the new ManoSpherians definitely look to us, and some of the new guys around the block, and you can see them mostly black pill. We look at our friends like your good friend Kevin Ray Wilder, Glenn, and Playing with Fire. Bad talking women. They say we do nothing but negatively talk about women. And we just put women down. Myron does too. It's terrible what we do. And it could be the furthest thing from the truth, but this is kind of taking traction. There's a whole lot of folks that seem to want to, especially these new ManoSpherians and the rise of them, is to point towards the older guys and say, all we do is castigate women and put them down into this secondary class. And they're doing this because it gains traction outside of this space with somebody that has a feminist kind of mindset that doesn't realize they do because they've been conditioned. So when it is actually the furthest thing from truth, we actually love women. We love that their nature is exactly as it is because it really opens up a world of possibilities to live the dream. As a red-pilled man that understands this, it can't even be described properly in words when you understand the emotional nature of women and how they actually do mate selecting. This is actually ignored by most of these new ManoSpherians. And you know why? Because they haven't lived the pain of trying to put together relationships, smash these relationships. They just look at the manual and say, oh, They haven't actually put it into proper use. They haven't put it into action or experience. And, just posting receipts like we know of some of them do of the hookers they paid is not the same experience as an actual relationship. And so they come back and say, we're really talking down. We love women. Glenn, alphas love 304s. We're this is fantastic. It's like every great rock band needs they need followers, and they need what do they call the women? Groupies, right? And of course, we all need God. Don't you just love a 304 that's in remission?
Bro, wait until we drop that 304 video that we did for the Titan.
Trident?
The Trident, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
That's gonna you think Andrew Tate rocks some boats? Bro.
It will be
we sinking battleships on that one.
There's enough container in that the people will take it for what it will in the direction that they want to. We're going to get some emotions stirred up on purpose to illustrate our points. But this is not the Trident. This is the DragonShip. So we're out there and we're looking for Poseidon right now. 2022. What do you think? Let's get some of Mark. Mark, is your mic working again? Let's get you back in on this 2022 thing.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what happened. I lost connection or something. Yeah. What was your question?
Well, 2022, we had a lot of events. You got to be brought on to MLD's crew for the Masculine Empowerment Network, which, guys, I am going to take this moment to do my good friend a favor, and I will post his link. Mark is on the Masculine Empowerment Network as one of the instructors, and his course is opening up again for 2023. And so Randall is a portion of that as well. I wanted to definitely do the shout out to MLD. So Mark, you got to join that this year. And I would say that's an event in 2022. You also got to come on with a dude party. And I think you actually did an episode of Interview with a Man and several other big names in the manosphere. You were interviewed by a bunch of them. Why don't you go over what happened in 2022 with you?
Well, I enjoyed it. I did a presentation for MLD on the value of fitness. And what we talked about there more was when people think of fitness, they usually think of course, your body and physical fitness, but there's so much more to it than that. So I talked about that and shared that with young men. And anytime I'm on, my goal is not to badmouth women. And if you listen to some of my videos, most of them I say it's men need to understand women and not, there's a lot of red pill creators that they badmouth women. They get a lot of followers or subscribers, whatever you want to call it. But we all need to learn the nature of each other and to accept that nature, not try to change it. But it seems like too many times they go for the negative instead of trying to find a solution. And the solution is to accept, for women to accept the way men are, and for men to accept the way women are, and to deal with it. You're not going to change women. You're not going to change men. So during this year, when I got on these, I had these opportunities to speak, I try to talk about that, which I believe is the solution. And that's what we do here also. We don't just badmouth women and badmouth other people. We're trying to give men the information they need to become better men, because better men are better to women. And I think sometimes women don't realize that the better and more structured and stable a man is, the better he is for society. And the better he is for society, the better he is for whatever woman he decides to be with. And the children, should they decide to raise children. So that's kind of what my mission has been in the last year. Use those opportunities.
What would you say about the MEN while we're talking about that? I have the link for anybody that'd be interested, because I think that really is one of those things that, people overlook as far as this space, is they get really interested in this space and you do get bits and pieces of practical information. What was your impression of MEN? It's very different than what you would actually expect.
Well, I think some people think it's just about picking up women. It's about the whole man and about building up that man. This year, I'll be doing a presentation on the power of persistence. As you gentlemen know, you cannot accomplish nothing without tenacity, persistence, and perseverance. And then the other men will be talking about other issues, but it's all to build up the man, the inner man, and of course the outer man, the physical part of you, to become a complete man. And that's what the what my concept of it is to make better men. And isn't that what women want? What do they complain about? There's no good men. Well, that's what we're doing. We're helping to build better men, not men against women, not men who sit around and badmouth women, but men who are going to make a better society for all of us.
I'd like to tee off on that real quick.
Please.
It's interesting when you think about that for a second. Mark's talking about how they do not badmouth women and women do want better men, right? But I think it's also important to understand that and I'll probably get some heat on this one, I don't care. But as men level up and increase their status, anybody that's putting the work in, day out, even if it's incremental and little, over time, that's going to add up. Well, women look for great men, right? But here's the thing. If a woman isn't great, do you think a man of status is going to settle for something less than or a retired 304? That's the point, right? So it's not necessarily that in the men's space or in these spaces like what Mark's working in right now, that they bash women. They're trying to educate women on how to better present themselves to the world for men of status. Because here's the thing, man, when a guy gets his stuff together and he's a strong leader, he's physically capable, he's handling his business financially, and everything, he's ticking all of those boxes. He's definitely not going to want a woman that is subpar by any means. Why would you invite that kind of trouble into your life once you've done the work to achieve the status that you have? Exactly. So it's not necessarily that. And so that's why I think a lot of this information gets twisted in the manosphere or whatever the ManoSpherians or whatever you want to call them, Thor, is that women seem to think, well, they just hate women. And that's not necessarily the case. We understand women and we understand women's behavior and nature, but it's ultimately up to a man to decide who he allows in his life once he achieves that certain level of status. You cannot accept, a man of status will not accept a subpar woman in his life. So it's up to the woman to make better choices, do more cognitive things as far as thinking before acting as much as possible. And I know that's not trying to be disrespectful, but that's a very difficult thing for women to do because they act off of what? Emotion.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because it's a very similar thing to what everybody did with Jack Murphy. When something is projected out there, he did an emotional reaction, and that's what women do when we project something. The truth was actually just thrown out in a harsh, blatant, empirical manner with Jack, right? And then he had a response. Bless his soul, but he did. And this is exactly what happens with women in the red pill. We kind of throw out the truth in a jagged fashion because empirically it is what it is. And that really works with us men. With the women, it invokes a deep visceral reaction because part of their weaponry is really their sexuality. And to reveal their weaponry as it's non-potent and really a nothing issue, and that's what the red pill does, it disarms them completely and invokes this very visceral reaction of pushback. At least that's my opinion on it. And so I was just kind of drawing a simile between the two. We can all fall victim to that emotionality for sure. I think the red pill leans heavily into empiricism, and that's a good way to stay away from the immediate emotional reactions that are inside all of us.
Yeah, I think that's a great point Phil made because we're not bad-mouthing women. We are advising men what types of women may not be good for you in your future. It's the same as myself here. I have a daughter who dates, and I have sons who date. I make the guy that comes here to take my daughter out, we meet him. I shake his hand. I talk to him. I look him in the eye. I don't want her dating a guy the same way. She's a girl, a young woman. I don't want her dating a man or a young man who is a loser, for lack of a better way to say it. So it's not just, we advise men. And of course, we want men to look for a good woman. And we have the ideas from statistics and from history to what makes the kind of woman that will be good for a healthy relationship, something that will propel him. As they say, she will be a sail instead of an anchor. So it's very important. We can't just blindly deny the fact that some women are not going to be as good for men as others. Just like some young men that come here to take out my daughter are not going to be good for my daughter. And we should use our wisdom, what we've learned, to help those who are just moving up the path.
Yeah,
Can I
100.
say something here?
Oh,
can I say something here, you guys? You know what? We are doing something that is very similar to the modern day church, and where we're failing women in this space. And I'm going to say this, and you guys may, you know what? I might get a whole lot of flack from a lot of RP creators, and that's fine. But what the church has done for years is that it's only preached to men what men should be like. It only preached to men how men are supposed to behave and how men are supposed to be good. But never do they ever acknowledge the failures and flaws of a woman, except expecting that if a man is good, then a woman would follow, removing the fact that women could make up their own mind, women can make up their own decisions and behave their own way. They remove the fact that women are responsible for their own actions and behaviors. Okay. And what we got to start doing is not necessarily attacking women, but we need to start telling women what a quality woman is, how quality woman moves, and how quality woman should behave in order to be considered a quality woman in the eyes of a very general and very across the board principle. We understand what men are supposed to be doing, but we don't necessarily explain to women how women are supposed to be doing. So where women are learning what it takes to be a good woman.
Yes.
What is it? Cardi B? Are they learning from Cardi B? Is that what we're doing? We are letting women go learn from these badass thoughts and expect them that's how a woman's supposed to be. So, you know, I'm telling you this, in 2023, I will be creating a very interesting series on the qualities of a woman from a biblical standpoint. And the reason why I say biblical standpoint, one, my history's in it, but two, all of our laws are constructed from the basic principles of the 10 Commandments, of, you know, biblical principles. So since we are governed by this to a degree, I'm going to create a video series on this topic.
Can I pop it on the end of that real quick with what Danny Ardle says? He says, I'm not saying this to be mean, but a certain chunk of women saying, where are all the good men? ? Quite frankly, don't qualify for that complete man who is upper top tier. Okay. They're not worthy. And I want you guys to listen to what I'm about to say going into 2023. We are designed to save women from themselves. But we are not designed to save them from the streets. And I want you guys to really internalize that when you start dealing with women and understanding these relationships that you have with women. You can save her from herself, i.e., making poor decisions in your presence, but you can't save her from the streets. And that's all I got on that, Thor.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Let's take a little bit of a shift, and we'll go to another shocking event, and then we'll jump into some of the new ones that Glenn will want to talk about. Let's talk about the shocking event, the rise and the unfortunate death of Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels made some amazing inroads into the community. Stylish, well-dressed. He projected a masculine presence, even through the screen, that he had crafted over many, many years of experience. And he was able to melt away some of the hardest, hardcore 304s that wanted to be reformed and have families, and get right down to the nitty gritty of why they were in the circumstances they were in. And that pill was very hard. And many of them had to swallow it when they realized what he was saying was the absolute truth. And that while they didn't like the empirical or the objective reality that he was saying, it was real. And this got a lot of traction. It got a lot of traction in our space, and it got a lot of hate from modern feminism because it really put them back on their heels. And I think he was still on his meteoric rise. And unfortunately, he passed away a little bit too early. He was younger than me and you, Mark, and he passed away. And that was very unfortunate. Let's get your thoughts on Kevin Samuels. I mean, he actually counseled one of the new ManoSpherians, which was Pearly Things, because she wants to be married, and she called him and and you can find that on the internet still. She was a few years back, and she called Kevin Samuels and asked for his consultation on his very innovative podcast. And he was doing this podcast right before even Fresh and Fit started bringing the gals on and started talking about some of the very same things, which hats off and respect to Kevin Samuels.
I really liked him. I thought he had some good, solid, and he knew how to talk to women in a way that he wasn't being derogatory to them, but just helping them see their own foolishness, for lack of a better, or inability to see themselves. So that's what I liked him. He had some really quality content. Sorry to see him pass.
You know, I will tell you one thing about Kevin Samuels. I'm still kind of not over his situation of being gone. But one word comes to mind: eloquence. The way he so eloquently utilized words and his appearance on camera to reach these people and kind of wake them up. You know, it was eloquent every time, every interaction. And he did have a lot of detractors. Oh, he just talks about the same thing. He keeps shooting chicks down, this, that, and the other thing. But what he was speaking was really the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, eloquence, man. He did it so eloquently. And I think there'll never be another Kevin Samuels. People, I've seen a couple on TikTok that have tried to emulate, you know, with the dress and the same discussions and stuff like that, but you will never touch the level that he was at in the way he conveyed his message, not only to men, but to women as well.
He had a lot of experience, and he also had finesse game at another level, which is in and of itself only really learnable via experience. And I will definitely agree with that. Anybody else thoughts on Kevin Samuels? Rest in peace. That was an event of 2022, gentlemen. He will be missed.
One thing with Kevin Samuels, the sad thing is with him is that, oh man, I never seen so many people excited and praying death of an individual. And you know, the sad thing is about this, like, I hear, can I still see me? Because I still see me. Am I here? Am I good?
No,
yeah, you're ditched out.
We dropped him, unfortunately. Well, hopefully that'll come back. Yeah,
So,
Kevin was amazing. Mark?
I just say it would sound like Lynn was making a point about how many people that were so excited and just praising his death. It was pretty sad, I thought. Yeah, we can hear you now.
We can hear you
Okay.
now. Hopefully it's
Yeah.
back.
What I'm saying is that, you know, the sad thing is about Kevin Samuels, and Mark, you're right. People were praising his death. And the reason why they're praising his death is because they couldn't shut him down. They couldn't stop him. And they didn't like the fact that he was giving them a mirror. He was giving them a mirror to reflect on and realizing that they did not meet what he was saying, the standard. And that's what's the problem right now is that, you know, the mirror tends to be reflected on the man, and the woman is not looking at her own reflection. And until people are able to see the reflection on both parties, we're not going to have the changes that we want to see. Until somebody's actually, and this is why Andrew Tate is under such bullshit and getting attacked, is because he's holding up a mirror to them. He's holding up a mirror and said, look at your reflection. Do you meet the requirements needed to reach the man that you want? And they don't like the fact that he's holding up a mirror. So they're going to do whatever they can to shut him up, because they don't want men to see that the women are not reflecting the qualities that these men that level up, that are doing what they need to do, require.
Yep. Well, I absolutely agree. Anybody else on Kevin Samuels?
So one thing that I noticed a lot of people did not like about Kevin was that he was talking to women, but they don't realize that he had been talking to men for years.
Yeah.
Telling men, you need to level up. You need to level up. It's like one of his videos that I just love was he's like, I don't believe I have to put this out, but here's some damn grown man lessons that y'all need to learn. And he spent time not just talking to women, like that's what really got big for him. But by talking to women, he was also helping men. And that's the thing is, even though he was talking with women, telling women they need to improve, he was still a man's champ. He was still there for the improvement and the betterment of men. And it's the shade thrown at him by other content creators because he was then talking with women. Just it never made no sense to me. And it's like, I think that, like Phyllis said and everybody else has said, he went way too early and we lost a lot of potential when he passed, and that there will never be another. It's like there will be others of their own kind, but Kevin has paved the way for a lot of people, and he will definitely be missed in this space.
Yeah, if anybody listened to him long enough, if you heard him talk to men on there, he would come down hard on them, a lot harder than he did on the women. But people never, that wasn't what bothered the women, of course. But yeah, he would just bash men. You need to do this. You need to do that. You expect this. How do you expect this if you're not doing it? Yeah, he was hard on men.
And that's par for the course, because in our space, in this Western world, women are not up for debate when it comes to bad behavior. It's a free pass. It's the pussy pass, to be honest with you. And men, of course, are really disposable in that regard. So he really didn't get traction with men. He got traction with women, you see. And Kevin, I learned a lot about, definitely women really, really have a completely different view on reality that's really based on emotionalism. And it is a strong conviction of their early training in what we would call blue pill space and the prevalence of the princess. The
reason why they have that pussy pass is because men give it away. We give them that pussy pass.
Pretty privileged, yeah.
We wouldn't have the pass unless we never gave it to them.
We do, and then we protect them from all the harshities and tell them they deserve everything, and they deserve a man that'll pick the peanuts out of their poo just to look at their rear end where it came from.
Yep. Until we remove that pussy pass.
Whoa! No. Say that again, because I was distracted dealing with something. Hold on. Something about picking peanuts out of poo? What was that?
So there are men out there, and you know this, considering the thirst. They're trained. Women are trained that there are men out there, and it's true that they will essentially pick the peanuts out of the woman's poo so they can just get a glimpse of where that poo came from.
Yeah. Thor, I love you, man. Did you?
That's a mic drop. That's a
sad reality, isn't it? But there's a lot of truth in that.
That is a jagged pill truth, gentlemen.
It is. He says, the thirst.
We just got into 2023 realizing that men are picking the peanuts out of poo from women.
Think about it. OnlyFans is all the proof you need.
Good.
Much less Instagram.
Glenn, I got a question for you.
But I'm kind of happy to look at where it came from. Sorry, guys. I mean, I don't know about picking the peanuts, but
I got a biblical question for you, Glenn. You know, that's the way it is in society today, and we've seen that these men are so enamored with women. How much do you think that has to do with the country that gets away from believing in God or following the principles that if you're a Christian or whatever, that God has laid down? They get to where they worship women in the place of God. They put women in that place.
Well, the church is doing that too.
Yeah, and that's probably why like a lot of people that are in the church probably have a problem with me. Is because I call it out. I have no problem pointing out the flaws. And you'll see coming soon that, you know, ever since feminism has entered the church, it has ruined the church. Okay, I'll just give you a few basic principles. Okay, it says in Timothy, you know, Paul writes that women are not supposed to have authority and preach over men. What do we see now? We see women pastors. What after happened women pastors? We had gay ministers. Okay, these are all things that, you know, the Bible has talked about were abomination and should not be in a place. But now we're seeing it implemented in the church. Why? Because we put women in a position where the voices could be heard or that their suggestions should be made. And men who lead the church have faltered from their principles and started deferring biblical principles and scholarly, you know, biblical rights according to how women feel about things. So yeah, you know, when we see that we are, even in the church, even your pastor with the nice little, you know, reverend collar, you know, preaching thou this and thee, he is still bowing down to his knees to praise the pussy rather than the Lord JC. Okay, let's just be real with it. Like they have put, you know, instead of, you know, putting Jesus on the cross, I mean, Jesus may have been on the cross, but when he came out of that grave, it was a vagina. Okay, so that's what they're doing. They're worshiping the vagina more than they're worshiping, you know, God, hands down.
Yeah.
Some of that trim out there, man. You got to watch out, man. They both looked. It didn't. Don't they say that that a woman's girl parts actually resemble the snake's mouth?
All I gotta say is people need to read Genesis 3:16 and
Oh,
realize
don't
what
do
they're
it,
dealing
bro.
with.
It's a trap. It's a trap, gentlemen.
It's a trap.
Yeah, I like Mark's question. I think that social frameworks that are rooted in tradition do offer social boundaries, which helps a lot. But I don't think it's exclusively their territory, as expressed by what Glenn's going through with the church, where really there's idolatry going on for the feminine, and that's a big deal, and it's outside the church. It's larger than the church, and it's been going on since the 60s, really. It's an amazing thing. So there you go. Let's move along to our very next subject of 2022, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier, the new ManoSpherians, which is kind of the purple hue of the red pill. One of your favorites, Mr. D. Hammond, out there with the self-improvement guys that come on and they really just want to bash the red pill. Glenn, you're very familiar with this. One of your favorites is out there. Of course, so is the black pill, the white pill. It's kind of these offshoots where they want to do the popularity scraping, and really they're kind of trolls. They are trolls. And I think that most of them are not sincere. They actually just want to gain some sort of traction and popularity from basically arguing to be right and not having any foundation. Glenn, you've delved into this. We seem to see this with a lot of guys that are kind of on the religious side, with Ruslan and Hafiz. Really no experience whatsoever, a very limited experience with women, that basically get selected as a beta provider, and now they know it all, and they have the secret within their hands. They get very vicious and holier than thou. What are your thoughts on this? Because this is really kind of that purple hue that enters our space, where they scrape all of the clips off and then kind of point their fingers at us as, look at them, they need to do what I say. Run your channel.
These are the
He's
purple
really
people
good about
eaters.
this. He likes to point out and say, you shouldn't be telling everybody what's wrong or what's right. You shouldn't even be saying what's going on with behavior. Just pointing out behavior is bad. You need to be giving men the tools. And that's a cop-out bullshit thing. That's just pointing at himself. What do you think?
These are the purple people eaters, okay? Like, let's just call them what they are. They're the one eye, one horn, giant purple people eaters in this space that are, masquerading around as, the better than, the holier than thou, the I know the way, I have the truth and the life. They're just like, okay, you guys ever understood the Messiah complex? You guys know what that means? All right, so if you guys don't know what the Messiah complex is basically in every religion, in multiple religions, there's always been someone that was the Messiah complex, the one that knows the truth, is going to lead the way, that's going to have the answers to your problems if you just follow their fucking terminology and their wording. That's them. And these guys are taking sound bites and clips, and they're using the most triggering things to speak against men on, and to try to and
no,
Glenn, it is like the biggest way of
Okay. Well, we'll come back to Glenn in a moment. Unfortunately, he is remote. He is out deep behind enemy lines in the deepest of blue pill states, performing recon right now for the DragonShip. And when he is able to reconnect to command headquarters, we will bring Glenn right back in. Okay. Jeez. Yeah, I think he's right, though. I mean, these guys definitely, the purple people eaters, definitely really like this point and sputter, Phil. I see a lot of pointing and sputtering. And one of the things I want to, next week we'll do the prediction. I think that with the arrest of Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, I think that there is really going to be a backlash. There always is in our space. And these guys have really broken the logarithm, and they brought a lot of attention, and this caused a huge emotional reaction. A huge emotional reaction. So, there's a lot of money going on, exchanging hands in very corrupt places. This is going to cause a lot of these purple pill or so-called new ManoSpherians to really point the finger at the likes of
that are sufficiently newsworthy to break through onto the internet. They're the most egregious transgressions of this particular.
Somebody clicked on the wrong thing, so let's go back. But this is one of the blue pill grifters right here. It really is. He's really castigating with Andrew about the red pill and how they in this particular episode. I didn't have it here, but they actually talk about, Phil, that what we do is dangerous. Now, I'll talk about this more next week, but our beloved YouTube is actually going to talk about new policies for monetized channels. And speaking of which, RP Thor is now monetized. You guys can support us with super chats and with memberships over on RP Thor, which goes right back into this content. But then the part of the new terms of agreement is that they've called out, if you support content that can be viewed as offensive to protected classes, you could be terminated after 3 warnings, or a warning and 2 strikes. So that's a real tightening of information. And there's also new restrictions on speech as far as cursing and what is viewed as cursing. I'll break it down with you guys later, but I just got notice being a freshly monetized channel. That's very, very telling with what's coming up. And that happens on January 23rd. But, back to what's going on with Andrew Tate. This is just setting the stage for all of the crosshairs to focus on men like us. And it won't just happen here. It's going to happen in the workplace, gentlemen. This will be the new diversity, inclusion, and equity challenge that's out there. Is if you think like this, you will not be allowed to say it in any forum. What are your thoughts?
Was it? Yeah, well, let's talk about diversity in that new bill they just passed, right? Wasn't there like something like 500 million or something crazy put into like diversity in the workplace?
Yes.
I'm just spitballing from the sidelines. I don't know the exact figure, but I know it was massive. I think that, 2 things, these guys right here that are saying the message that we bring is bad, is incorrect. And, they are definitely a new crop. That's why I put up grifters are going to grift. The new crop will try to grift the noobs to the space. It doesn't matter. It's the same trick. The problem is that the new guys in this situation, in this space, are going to bite onto that stuff. In the beginning of our stream, we had that clip that Glenn so eloquently put together. And that guy was talking about if you had a prenup, then you just have a girlfriend. That's incorrect. It's a lie. You're still married.
Yeah, he was only married a year so far.
Yeah. Here's the deal, man. Let me tell you something. And Glenn and I have been going back and forth on this, man. Marriage is a friggin' contract. There's all different kinds of marriages, but let me tell you something real quick. If you have status, if you have worked your tail off, why not protect it? Put some goalposts in there. You make it 5 years without any problems. You make it 10 years. You make it 15 years. By that time, she's a part of your life 100%. A lot of those contracts and those prenups can fall off in your marriage. But see, information like that is definitely incorrect.
It's devastating because the reality is if you protect yourself and you are your own mental point of origin, Phil, you're actually that man to be desired and that man to climb on board with to go on his journey.
That's right.
If you don't do that and you don't do it, it's not a hard thing to do. It's something you believe in and you wanted to get on board with it because it sets a level stage. And I will say this, having been married for 30 years, you must always have in your mind a level of detachment in which you could pull an escape plan. And this is a hard thing for people to understand and say, Thor, you don't have any emotions. I do. I feel them all. I choose when to feel them and when to process them. And part of this is taking responsibility for my actions as a man. and taking
100%.
accountability, which
Boom.
means I must be able to support myself and be successful in order to provide for those that I care and love for. That would include the wife that I have, or even if ex-wife, if that comes down to that. And that's more important than putting the state in between. I would definitely, if I have to play in those rules, I am going to use those rules to my advantage straight up. And that doesn't mean that we're in love less. And when he says when Andy said, oh, you don't have a marriage, you have a girlfriend. No, I have a mate that I'm trying to make a covenant with for the rest of my life and protect us.
That's right. And that's the thing, right? Is if there's mutual respect there, and she's enthusiastic in your life and she's supporting your mission and you're elevating yourself in status, she wins. She is motivated to do the right thing in the relationship with you. She's motivated.
Yeah.
But see, the problem is, and you guys were talking about this on Rule Zero, you were talking about IQ. Was it like 50% is like subpar IQ? There's just not a lot of men of status in this world anymore.
No.
And so
let me ask you guys this question real quick. Sorry, Phil. Why does it seem that if he's going to say that if you have a prenup, you have a girlfriend? Because a prenup only protects you, and they do not. Women are not required to have a prenup. The state protects women. So how dare you protect yourself? They don't want an even playing field. If the feminists are fighting for equality, then you would expect them to want an equal playing field. But listen, let me tell you something. Feminism is not about equality. Okay, they only want equality in areas that benefit them. They don't talk about the inequalities that they benefit from, like marriage, like family law, like criminal law. Okay, women can get charged for the same damn crimes and get a lesser sentence. We see this all the time with teachers that molest or fuck their little, students, and they get off with probation and house arrest. But if you fuck the 17-year-old girl as a student, you're going to jail and registering as a sex offender. They do not want equality. They want inequality in areas that benefit them, and they want supremacy in areas that they can get.
Yeah, supremacy is actually the thing, Glenn, because, when they had lost the Equal Rights Amendment in the late 70s and 80s, they lost that as a push for a constitutional amendment. They actually supported it in the background, it not passing, for the very reason that if modern feminism is a supremacy movement, and they made the choice to actually put teeth into it and make two classes citizens, and that women are more privileged when it comes to laws and to policy that's issued by the state. And that's fact. And you can go look it up. It's the Duluth model that they use for domestic violence that's been instituted in all family courts, that has been instituted into all family courts across this nation and adopted by many other countries as well. And it's interesting because family courts are definitely not the courts of law you think they are. They're courts of equity.
100%, and they aren't regulated either.
No. Other courts, like a civil court, is a court where the preponderance of evidence makes the rules. That is justice. And then, of course, a criminal court in this country is you're innocent until proven guilty by the state. And that is not the same in family court. Just so that people are very clear that modern feminism is a supremacy movement that is based in Marxism, and it's been pushed in academia extremely hard. And this is one of the big fights that, people that are waking up and red pill young men, are in a very difficult situation to try to find a mate, and they're just starting to wake up. And this is going to be a big fight. It's one of the reasons we get back to the Andrew Tate thing, is he's calling it for what it is, which you guys all know. And you, especially Glenn, being the master at arms and a former military man, and those of us that had combat experience, you know what happens to the tip of the spear when you engage in combat.
It's broke.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the tip of the spear is super important because that's what's going to penetrate the armor, but it does break off. And Andrew Tate is probably that tip of the spear in reality. But he's doing a good thing because it will live on. And I think that's one of the important messages that comes out in 2022.
Yeah, and
Andrew Tate will be the martyr.
Yeah, he will.
In 2023. If
The
they could
Neo
shut
of
him
the
down,
Matrix.
Yeah,
in my opinion, if they could shut him down and silence him permanently, he would be considered the martyr.
That could be a bad thing for them, really.
It will be the thing that sets. It will be the catalyst that sets things
the
down
world
the
on
path
fire.
that they do not want to go down.
Yeah, Zach and I did a show. It's called the Tuesday Teardown. It's both on Zach Small's channel and mine, and we talked about that this week. And one of the big things is, we were talking about Andrew, and I've done a little bit of research on him. And the thing is, once he was reinstated back on Twitter, once Elon took control of Twitter, that is what propelled him. I mean, I've watched him go from like 50,000 followers. He's over 3 million now. And and this has happened in like the last 5 weeks.
Yep.
He has exploded. And no matter how much they shut him down, his voice is still being heard. And that's the important thing to understand. And one of the things we were talking about on the Tuesday Teardown was we wanted men to understand that if there was an error, and there's something nefarious in his past, unfortunately, that's coming up, and he deals with that. It doesn't flaw his message. Exactly. You can make a mistake, and you can correct that error and answer for that error and continue on the path. And that's the point: is the woke folk in this world, the powers that be, are threatened by him. I did another Google search, and Romania gets about 500 million US dollars. Okay, let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, 500 million. And we all know Romania is a corrupt state. They can be bought and paid very easily. I mean, I think you guys discussed that on Rule Zero today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting when you think about that for a second, the powers that be, okay, too many guys are getting woke up to what's important. Level yourself up, get your finances straight, get your physicality in line, quit eating garbage, quit vaping, quit being a deadbeat, be a man, lead your tribe, lead your social circle, lead yourself in a better way. And it's almost like the powers that be do not want men to be strong, capable, healthy men. And that validates that. And so what I want men to understand is, no matter which way it goes, there's going to be cheers on one side if he gets handled. There's going to be cheers on the other side if it all goes away and it comes out. The big thing is men, you don't operate out of emotion. You operate out of logic and thought. Sit back and let's see what happens. Okay, don't be discouraged if you've taken something that Tristan and Andrew have told you that you've consumed on social media that's helped you in your life. Don't be disappointed, because those lessons you learned from those gentlemen have improved who you are as a man. It's improved your status. I think the explosiveness of them trying to shut him down is why he has exploded to the level that he's exploded. It's almost like, an above ground swimming pool, and it gets a hole on it, and in the side of it, it's like a little pinhole, right? And you come along and you're like, well, I can't afford a new pool. So you put a piece of duct tape on it. Them trying to silence him is like them putting a piece of duct tape on an above ground pool. It just is not going to happen. Now, I think enough men, especially young men, are starting to wake up, and they're recognizing, man, I'm fat, I'm weak, I'm sloppy, I have nothing in my life, and they're starting to square themselves away. And I think that as that happens, it destabilizes the current narrative of the powers that be, because they once again want men to be hooked up to carts. They want men weak. They want men fat. They want men distracted and comfortable. They don't want men consuming red pill information. And that's why you have this whole crop, to circle back, Thor, on these purple pill guys that we had in the beginning of the stream. You have these guys popping up because they're like feeding on the purple pill narrative a little bit right there, right? And they're kind of like grooming it to where, okay, see, Tate's bad and Tristan's bad and the red pill's bad, but here's a softer, gentler version. But the softer, gentler version still is going to categorize you into a liability column and not into an asset column.
So here's my take on that. My take on that is yes, but I don't really think there's such a thing as purple pill. It's what it is them entering the black pill, because either you're a red pill, you can't unsee it.
No.
Or they've never actually gone there and they've done the TLDR. And that makes them something else. The new ManoSpherians, right? Because once
new ManoSpherians.
Once we see the actual red pill, you can't go back. Now you can get bitter and black starts to invade that red pill and you get what's the purple is, and then it eventually turns black. And we see what those guys do with it. They're very embittered. And we know that actually exists. I think it's actually much smaller. They just make a lot of noise. And because the real benefits are easy to acquire if you're not lazy of the red pill. It's just too easy. So, having those thoughts, I want to get us into the next area. That video I showed earlier definitely pointed out those that want to be in the red pill space, but they're kind of adding that little mix of black in there. They're the TLDR and they want to popularity scrape, for all that stuff. It's interesting that at the end, I actually showed the old guard, and the old guard, what Rollo has done with Mike Sartain is hopeful for the future. And I wanted to point that out. That happened in 2022. He's really looking at upping the game with not only that, but creating a nice solid base for Rule 0. MLD's coming on strong. We also have Fresh and Fit keeping the faith and doing the entertainment thing at a great level. They're going to rank 1 million subscribers. So their reach has gotten very good, and they have expanded into Rumble and other platforms, because I think that this platform that we're on here, we love them to death, but it will probably become more restrictive considering that we will become the bad guy. And that's kind of why I put that. But the old ManoSpherians, the original ManoSpherians, will become the bad guy for the new ManoSpherians. And I want to take a moment and talk about Twitter just for a second. It's not really in this category, but by the shifting of the guard at Twitter, it really has changed things. There is leverage that's being applied now because our message has been suppressed, not just ours, but politically too. So I wanted to acknowledge that Twitter may become a real force in this information war that we're all fighting. And I also want to spend the last maybe 15 minutes or so here talking about something that just occurred recently, and that was the loss of Alan Roger Curry, extreme pioneer in direct game. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on either the Twitter thing or really Alan Roger Curry. You guys realize that Alan Roger Curry was very much a pioneer, and what he had come about with was the fact that once you had he did not like the fact that men would be extremely indirect and not tell women what they wanted, which we all know what men want from women when they're in the dating market. They're really looking for sex, and they want that to be compatible sex with them to see if they can move to the next level. Women really want to know if they're compatible before they offer the sex. And so a lot of men take a very direct or indirect approach. And
Beta game.
Yes. And it works. In some cases,
it's simp game. Just say what it is, man. That's the thing about Alan Roger Curry, man.
Well, Alan Roger Curry is direct game.
100%. Mode 1. Let's go.
And mode 1 is you tell a woman what you want. Now, here's the thing, though. That saves a lot of time. It doesn't work for everybody. And there are certain choices that you can. It's not as much of a finesse game as some would have. I personally like indirect game to the point where you get indicators of interest, and then direct game fucking rules once you get to that point, because then you clear the table. You absolutely clear the table with what you want. And I think this is where he really shined. Is Alan had 4 modes of communication that he categorized for women. He had the direct mode, he had the manipulative time wasters. And, I'm not going to go through all of them, but it was pretty amazing that he was able to do that, because we've all been with women that do that. Like the manipulative time wasters really use the men for attention, because attention is really the coin of the realm in girl world. Thank you, Rollo Tomasi. And it truly is. And you can see this exhibited every day online, that attention rules. It rules in an incredible way. So I wanted to kind of, he was taken from us very, very quickly. Our friend Paul over there at Come On Man podcast did his last interview with Alan Roger Curry. Interesting cat. He was inspired by an old porn movie back in the 70s that's called Talk Dirty to Me. And the reason that stood out and was such a popular adult film is because the lead character in there would talk dirty to the woman. He would say the most nasty, disgusting thing to these just grown, reserved ladies. And he'd whisper to them and he would force them through the use of his melodic voice to talk right back to him and repeat the nastiest, dirtiest things that a lady would never do. And they did it vigorously and repeated it for him. It was almost as if he had a magic spell. And this guy was inspired to, when a woman would create interest in him, to try it. And lo and behold, it worked like magic, because actually all the arousal triggers for women outside of her body are here. This is the key, because even if she shuts it down here, her body's not going to accept the triggers physically on her body. But if you open the key here, all of these arousal triggers on her body and outside of her body can be accessed, in particular through your body language and your voice. And this is a really, really big deal, because this is very, very true. So direct game is a really interesting thing. He's basically telling the ladies that are interested in him, I'm really interested in an even exchange of orgasms. Let's exchange orgasms and enjoy the connection that we have for the moment. And it was an amazing thing, because that was very pioneering. Nobody had done anything like this. I mean, this is even prevalent before the days of mystery and the pickup. The Ross Jeffries using NLP, which is a way of kind of corralling words and using a hypnotic voice to try to wrangle this woman into a point of arousal, which it can work, by the way. If she's interested in you, it doesn't really matter. She's going to be interested. But in a way of kind of trying to open that door. And in some ways, indirect game is also a way of projecting a person that you are not, so that she's interested in having sex with you. So he was really interested. He was kind of pushed aside by a lot of the PUAs. But you have to recognize the pioneering nature of what he put together with direct game. Now, later in life, he definitely lived in the lifestyle, Glenn and Phil. He was a lifestyler for sure. And had a lot of experience in that area. And he ended up marrying a very young woman and having a family, and at least enjoying a child for a moment in time before he passed on so unexpectedly. Him and I were the same age, and it's kind of sad to start seeing, our friends go. I'm sure Mark understands that as you get older, it starts to, bodies start to wear out. But anyways, Alan Roger Currie, rest in peace. Let's get everybody's final thoughts on Alan Roger Currie and direct game. The king of direct game, passing away late in 2022.
Yeah, I was surprised. I've read a couple of his books, and I liked his method. Although you really kind of have to know game to be able to use it, because if you're not uncomfortable talking to a woman the way he suggests, you could probably get yourself in trouble nowadays.
Oh, you're going to get rejection, yeah, or a charge.
And charge. That's the problem. But there is a way to do it, and I've done it before, where you don't necessarily, it's kind of like what you talked about, indirect. You can use sexual undertone without actually saying the words, but he was actually into telling exactly what he wanted to do to them and how they would respond, which you can do that. But I do believe you first have to you can't just walk up to somebody in a market and they haven't looked at you and you just tap them on the shoulder and start saying some of that stuff. That's a good way to get in trouble nowadays.
Yeah, Fairley said to him, he didn't actually advocate running up to somebody and just saying it. He did have an approach.
And you got to have it inside of you to be able to do that. And you got to be comfortable with it, because if you're uncomfortable with his method, I guarantee you the girl you're talking to is going to be more uncomfortable. Yeah, you're going to come off as a creep.
You shoot yourself in the foot, man.
Yeah, you got to be on your game to use his method. But I liked it, and I have used that before he ever came around. I just didn't call it mode 1, but that does work.
Yeah. If you're a good conversationalist, mode 1's excellent, actually. If you're a good conversationalist with anybody, and you could do that with any woman, it's pretty impressive. It really does something when you're that kind of a conversation, because even if she rejects you and saying she's going to laugh, this or that, you redirect, you use one of the shit test pass, and you're right back there, and you're not really that rejected. It's just, maybe it's for another time. It's an interesting approach that I do very much admire.
Yeah. You just have to be aware of her body language and how she first responds to you when you meet her, and then go from there. It really makes a lot of difference. But people, too many times when they approach a woman, they're so worried about what they're going to say, they're not paying attention to how she's responding or what her body language is, how she's reacting to them being in her presence.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. The direct game is primarily what I'm going to be honest, man. That's what I use.
It works.
And so, like, it's so direct that sometimes, you know, they'll take it away, and Mark's right. You know, you got to have some rapport first, guys. Just don't go and lay this stuff on a chick. You know what I mean? But start it quick and early. You know, after a few exchanges, it's like, it's on. You know what I mean? You need to let her know what you want. And some of the things that I've asked for, I see sometimes in my experiences that when I mess around and do stuff like this, I see exactly how far I can push them. And sometimes I push them enough to where they disappear for a couple of days and they circle back and they're good with it. So even if they disappear on you with that direct game approach, not all is lost. Just stay quiet and wait for them to get back. If they don't get back, then you scared them off. Then you recalibrate and start it again. But direct approach is 100% better. I'm not saying mystery and all this, you know, the Casanova approach and all that other stuff isn't good. I'm just saying that being direct with a woman, when she understands exactly what she's going to get with you and you aren't BSing, like, hey, this is what I want from you now.
Yeah.
This is where I want to take you now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to think about it. This is what I want. The thing is 9 times out of 10, when you're so brutally honest and you're so brutally direct like that, it almost like pulls like 5 or 6 circuits out of the circuit board, and they don't know how to deal with that. So once again, like they might disappear for a couple of days, but then they'll circle back because they can't get over the fact that they get so many dudes come up to these girls and they're like beta game and like simp game. Oh, let me do this, let me do that, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, let's
commiseration game. Let me hear about how bad your life is. And trying to shoot that shot. You know, screw all that. When you're so direct with a girl, she can't get over that. You're stuck in her head.
I've seen that too. 3 days later, phone call. Hey, Raith, did you mean it?
Yeah, let's fucking go.
3 days later, you get a phone call. Did you mean it?
And they can't get over the fact that you're so direct and honest, because so many dudes are so simpish and so beta and want to, you know, shoot the shot from the side, from the trees. You know what I mean? They're all in their camouflage and their ghillie suits. Is that what they're called, Glenn? Ghillie suits?
Let me say something about this real quick. What guys are doing with this indirect beta game type of bullshit is what they're doing is this. They're hearing what women say. I want a guy that's interested in me, that has feelings, that, you know, right? So what they do, they go, okay, I'm going to pretend like this, but really my goal is this. And what these guys are doing, they're the ones that are setting up women for failure. These are the guys that, you know, you fake, you know, fraudulent wannabe guys, you know, go out there and they play this game. They're like, okay, I want to use direct game, but I'm too scared to be direct. So I'm going to masquerade around them like this, and I'm going to come at them like this today. Yes, Phil Foster is the most handsome man on the panel today. I have to admit that. That's right. I said it here first.
Bullshit.
Okay?
I think it's Randall.
But
It
real
is Randall.
facts is like, you know, guys tend to, you know, not direct game is the best way to go about things. You're being honest, you're being upfront, and you're being real. And women want men that are real. Okay, and too many times these guys use these indirect problems or the indirect games, you know, not being real with women, and then they mislead women. And by misleading women, you have now lost the trust of women.
That's really important, and I want to bring your guys' attention to that because, you know, in reality, this ties back into Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate. Why would you say such a thing, Thor? Well, I'll tell you why. Primarily because when you think about it, when we go, there is such a thing as indirect game that can be very useful, and finesse game that's very useful. But when you get into that beta side of game, it's just really talking to the existential fear of female hypergamy, which is being fooled. And it's being fooled that you are something you're not. And why this is such a fear for all women, this is what is being projected as the crime that Andrew Tate and his brother has committed. If you read the complaint, they're being accused of something called the lover boy method, which is they promise love and security and all these things to these women, but misrepresented themselves in the fact that they might have to do something dirty and some kind of pornographic something on the internet, even though they were paid and agreed to it, it was misrepresented, i.e. beta indirect game, for which I know that Andrew and Tristan do not do that. They are direct game guys. But it's really interesting that if you think about it, guys, this is the angle of attack that the Matrix has chosen, which is a female's, existential fear in mating, which is getting the actual loser beta guy as a mate instead of that top alpha guy. They misrepresented themselves, my God, to these women, and they made them lots of money, but they misrepresented themselves and made them do some embarrassing and dirty things. So
Well,
horrible.
basically, what these women are saying is they aren't aware enough and have enough cognizance to realize that they're being taken this whole time, and they were just. Is that what they're saying? I mean,
plausible deniability, bro.
That's the allegation, and here's the thing: it stirs up the females worldwide.
Plausible deniability.
It's true though. Women do not have the ability to recognize that. Okay, we see that from everything. Think about Eve taking eating the apple. She did not realize her decision in doing so was going to be so consequential. I mean, it's there. I mean, it's written. Nothing in the world is new. Anything
It's
under the sun
emotionalism.
repeats itself.
They make their decisions based on emotionalism. And
Yes, exactly. And they don't use logic. And because they don't filter things through logic first, they get blinded by the bullshit, and they're easily flawed. They easily fall trapped to, the dream instead of looking at what reality is.
and then they regret it later, and then thus we have this situation and other situations similar. I mean, even some of you Hefner's girls claimed at the time they were kind of forced to stay there or they were trapped. But yet they benefited from all his money and everything he gave them. But then later, it's just, I don't know. Why does this continue?
How is it forced because a man wanted them to stay? You're free to go, but I'd like it if you stay. Oh my God, he forced me.
Because later on, they're looked down upon because of what they did, basically prostituted themselves or whatever. And then they want to find a reason to say, well, I didn't know. I thought I meant something to them. That's what it seems like to me.
It is.
I could be wrong.
And that's why I love direct game, because direct game will filter wishy-washiness right out of them.
Yeah, 100%, man. Let me throw this comment up real quick, Thor, that Lana dropped in chat. She says, Phil, how many of you lost because you didn't drop everything, go to them when they had a bad day and wanted someone to comfort them? I never go.
I've lost because I did it once.
Yeah. It's like the little violin you see on TikTok or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, I hate to hear you're having a bad day. I got things to do. And it doesn't even matter. That's the point with direct games, that once you establish that early, hey, this is what I want from you, and this is what I expect from you. Either you're going to do it or you're not. It's your choice is yours. There is no shooting around, the trees or through the bushes or anything like that. It's just 100% up front. And that's what keeps you out of trouble with girls in these kind of situations. You know what I mean? There is no, well, I thought it would be something more. No, this is exactly what I want. And that's how you shield yourself from that kind of shenanigans right there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. There's so many women in the world. They're all packing the same heat. It's like the AK-47. I hate to say that, but they're printed by the millions.
No, they're all unique. They'll have different file marks on the inside of the receiver.
Jesus Christ.
You must lube it properly.
It's the rifling.
It's the rifling that counts.
It's
a 5-to-1 twist, Bill.
Bro, you fucking gonna choke me over here today.
Oh, you got to have a flash hider on the end of that thing.
Oh my God, dude.
Got to keep the limp balls out.
Yeah, Thor, I love you, man. Jesus, I love the hell out of you.
We have too damn much fun. Gentlemen, this has been fantastic. What a year, 2022. Next week, we're going to do 20 23 predictions, and we're going to go over a bunch of crap that we think's going to happen. And it doesn't really matter, but we're going to have too much fun because it's going to be startling, it'll controversial, and it'll